you've heard today how competitive this environment is, how tough it is to find a job, so forth. Hogwash. It's not true. If you were sick, would you be listening to that talking lamp, the TV, with all the medical and drugs and answers for every problem? No, you'd call a practitioner, you'd hit your books, you'd introduce prayer, and you'd be healed. It's no different here. Everybody, you need to kind of tune out, other than the experts, and you need to hit the books, and you need to turn to prayer. Now, Jack Welch liked to say, if you don't have a competitive edge, don't compete. Any company that you're going to go to work for, or are working for, they're concerned and always looking over their shoulder at who is going to take their position. And they want people who will maintain that competitive edge. So the question is, what is your competitive edge? Is it everything on your resume? Is it that elevator pitch? Well, yes, I guess it's all of that. But how many of us, when we have a problem, an accident, or we're sick, we start repeating something that we memorized in Sunday school? We start denying the claim. We start affirming the truth. We start reading the lesson. Those are just words. Mazzetti says that the letter are just human auxiliaries to truth and love that really do the healing. So are your declarations and your denials and your affirmations about that competitive landscape important? Yes, they're important because they align your thought to receive inspiration. They themselves don't heal anything. They just get you straightened out, docking, lined up so that you can dock and hook up with that right career or that right job. And it's the same process as healing illness. It's no different. What is your competitive edge? I'm out of the fast food business. And, we talk about secret sauce. So what's your secret sauce? What are you bringing that's totally unique to you? Well, Mark said it best. St. Mark said it best. He said, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. I'm going to make good the noun and make works the verb. Let your light so shine before men that they may see that your inherent goodness works, does work, is working, always has worked. So that the interviewer is not seeing your list of accomplishments, they're seeing your inherent goodness. That's what's touching them. That's what's getting you the job, and that's what your competitive edge is. And it's a competitive edge because there's nothing that can compete against it. Mazzetti wrote, some of the mere puppets of the hour are playing only for money and at a fearful stake. So I have a question for you. Do you want to make money or do you want to make sense? Years back, I heard a story on the radio about an art collector. And during the war, people who, especially in Europe, who had famous paintings would get a lesser-known artist just to paint something over the masterpiece so that when the Germans came in and to abscond with all the art, they would overlook these. And a lot of masterpieces were lost to the world. Well, this art collector was at an auction, and he suspected one of the pieces on auction was a masterpiece by the watermarks in the back, the age of the canvas, so forth. And he bought it. Bought it for nothing, a couple $100. And he took it home and got a very mild acid bath solution. And he started rubbing gently with a brush and break down the newer coat of oil from the older coat. And he did this in the whole corner of a painting. He knew he had a masterpiece. True story. Now, if you were that person, and the painting covering the masterpiece was gorgeous, it was the most beautiful painting you'd ever seen, or it was hideous, it was frightful, it was terrible, would it matter? Would your thought even go to the covering over the masterpiece? It's irrelevant, isn't it? Your thought would stay on the masterpiece. And the process of taking that oil paint off, would you call that evolving or maturing or learning more? No. You'd call it revealing. The masterpiece is there. It's complete. It's perfect. And what you're doing by removing that covering is you're revealing that masterpiece. Well, that masterpiece is you. And when you go to an interview, you're bringing a great gift to that company. The masterpiece that is you. At one point in the restaurant business, I had 12,000 employees. And I've probably gone through 10 or 20,000 resumes, and I can't tell you how many interviews I've done. And a good interviewer is really rude. They'll stare you down and try to make you look away. They'll take a ride for lunch and see how dirty your car is. They'll interrupt you mid-sentence. They'll change subjects right when you think you've made a point. And when you think you've completed your thought, they'll say, that's good, go on, continue. And why do they do that? They do that because they're trying to get you off script. They're trying to break you down so they can see who you really are. They want to know you. They want to know that masterpiece. They want to see the goodness that you have to give them. In retrospection, Ms. Eddy asks, do you know yourself? Do you know thyself, she says. Art thou still unacquainted with thyself? Then be introduced to this self. I'm talking about the masterpiece. Be introduced to this self. Note well the vileness of this human self. Wipe the dust from his feet and the tears from his eyes, that you may behold the fellow saint of a holy household. Let there be no blot on the escutcheon of your Christliness when you lay your gift upon the altar. I love that word, escutcheon. The definition I like the best is the family crest or coat of arms. In other words, what you stand for, your reputation. Let there be no blot on the escutcheon of your Christliness, the presence of the Christ in your expression of who you are. When you lay your gift upon the altar, that's the goodness you bring to the interview. That's your gift upon the altar. We want them to see the completed masterpiece, the fellow saint. They want to see your good gifts, and every one of you are spectacular in something. Don't hide that. I was privileged to give the commencement address to the Department of Economics for UCLA last June. And I told the story of Buckminster Fuller. He's the inventor of the geodesic dome and Biosphere 2 in Arizona, the environmental place where people want to live. He's the inventor of the modern soccer ball, which is a geodesic dome of sorts. He was 32 in 1927, and he liked to jog. He went around jogging around Lake Michigan. That was his favorite place to run. And he decided he knew every inch of that lake. He knew exactly the spot to jump in and end his life. You see, a few years earlier, he had lost his young daughter to a childhood disease. He was very depressed. He was running his father-in-law's manufacturing business. He was working hard all day, but he was drinking all night. And his depression finally cost him the business. And he decided to end it all. His wife just had a new baby girl, and he felt that he'd have to give them a fresh start by eliminating himself and getting him out of the way. An inspired thought came to him. You don't have the right to eliminate yourself. You don't belong to you. You belong to the universe. Boy, he thought about that. He says, yeah, but what is a penniless failure of a man? What can I possibly do for the world that political and economic institutions can't do? The answer came right back to him. You can apply your gifts to the highest advantage of others. Maya Angelou once said, when you get, give. When you learn, teach. Well, that's something for seekers and allies both. If you want to be successful, make someone else successful. That's the way it's done. Who knows what the word synergy means? We use it all the time in business. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Well, our friend Buckminster Fuller didn't jump in the lake. He went on to do great things. But one of them was redefining the word synergy, and he was the father of the school of synergistics. Now, synergistics takes that definition that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts and expands it a little bit. It says that an isolated component, like you and me, by being an observer and participant, can affect the outcome of the whole. So that your observation alone can affect a change. Not just your participation, but your observation, what you see, how you see it. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that just the way a practitioner works? The way they observe the truth in you? Little girl cut her finger once. Her mommy was a Christian Scientist, her daddy wasn't. Her mommy put a Band-Aid on the cut finger. And she was afraid of what her father was going to say when he came home from work. Daddy comes home from work, sees the Band-Aid right away and says, come here, I want to see that. She's nervous. He said, take that Band-Aid off. Oh, Daddy, please, don't see what you're going to look at. Meryl Walters gave a lecture last week, and she said, every problem we have is a vision problem. Isn't that great? Every problem we have is a vision problem. It's how we view ourselves, the economy, the job market. How are we viewing it? I'm going to tell you a testimony of sorts. It's a story about a young man named Eugene. I had a couple of restaurant chains that I built. And one of them, we had about 250 restaurants, about 12,000 employees, like I said. And I was at one particular restaurant more than others because we were implementing some new programs and new products. And they really needed help. And they had one applicant come in, his name was Eugene. And Eugene had a developmental disability, probably had a 60 or 70 IQ, and he had one hand that was closed and paralyzed. He couldn't use it. The manager didn't want to hire him. There was something about Eugene in my observation that I liked. I couldn't tell what it was, but I was drawn to him. I said, let's give this guy a try. Put him on the soft drinks to make soft drinks. This was before you made your own soft drinks out in the lobby of a fast food restaurant. And Eugene would hold the cup with one hand, and he got to do it. And everyone was real standoffish. They were nervous about Eugene. And after a while, they got to like him. They got to know Eugene. They got to know the masterpiece behind the painting. And he was there for quite a while. And he was learning to take on new tasks. And I came to the restaurant one day, and Eugene was so excited, he came up to me and he says, Mike, my hand is opening, I can use it. As people accepted him in a normal environment, he responded. He was appearing smarter than he was when we hired him. Well, some more time passed, and I heard that Eugene had given notice he was quitting. I go, well, what do you mean you're quitting? I went down, I said, Eugene, you can't quit. He says, I have to, Mike. He says, my father has had a stroke. He owns a shoe repair business, and my mother doesn't know how to run it. I'm going to go in and run the business for my father. And Eugene took over that business and ran it. I mean, I just hugged him and I wished him the best, and I was so pleased and so grateful. Shortly thereafter, I got a notice from the government that they were offering targeted job tax credits for hiring the disabled. And I had my experience with Eugene. I said, oh, this is great. Let's have a program. So I developed a program. I called it Hire and Hire, H-I-R-E and H-I-G-H-E-R. And we were the first in the country to hire developmentally disabled out in the dining room, cleaning tables and greeting customers. And it was a terrific program, but something happened. All at once, I was getting all these resignations from all these developmentally disabled folks that were hired. What's going on? Turns out that when they made more than $270 a month, they lost their medical benefits. Thousands of dollars of benefits lost. That can't be right. Why would the government do that? I went to my congressman and I complained. He says, I see the problem. I said, why 270? Why not, that's a welfare threshold. Why not go to a Social Security threshold, which is $710? That's a good point. And he gave me some names of some people in Washington. He said, you should go back and talk to the people in Washington. I'm one guy, what can I do? I got on a plane, I went back to Washington. I talked to the Undersecretary of Health and Human Services. I talked to our senators. I talked to congressmen. I talked to Bob Dole. I talked to everyone that would listen to me. And I'll cut right to the chase on this. They had a demonstration product that did exactly what I wanted, raised the threshold to $710, but they didn't have any private sector interest, and they didn't have a congressman to sponsor it. So I spent the next week finding a congressman who would sponsor it, because I was the private sector interest. And we got it introduced to Congress. We got it passed as a 2-year demonstration project, and 300,000 jobs were created. Now, 2 years later, it got renewed. 2 years after that, it got renewed. I'm driving down the street one day, and on the news, they announced that part of the new act for equal rights for the disabled, whatever, included making this demonstration project permanent law. It took me about 10 minutes to gain composure and be able to keep going. All because of the way I observed Eugene. Do you see the importance and how everything is a vision problem? To see the goodness in each other, that goodness does work, is at work, is working. Are you important? Are you significant? Ask yourself the same question that Bucky Fuller asked. What can I do? Well, I'm here to tell you, you are indispensable to God. Without you, God, good, spelling God with 2 O's, is not expressed. God needs your full expression. And that employer needs your full expression. And it is resistless. Ms. Eddy only uses that word once in all of her writings. She says the principle of Christ is divine love, resistless life and truth. It is resistless, and know that when you go into the interview. See that about yourself. If you see yourself as a masterpiece, the interviewer is going to see you as a masterpiece. If you don't see it, they won't see it. That's your edge. We've all heard the Bible sentence, and I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. As you spiritualize your thought, you will draw unto you just the right employer, just the right position, just the right place to be. People who are hungering for your talents. But inspiration doesn't do it alone, nor does observation. What's the definition of fan in the glossary? That which gives action to thought. So we're both observer and participant in that synergistics. And as participant, you need to take initiative. And that was the other thought that came to Bucky Fuller. You don't need anyone's permission to take initiative. So let's sum it up. You are absolutely indispensable to God. Change your view of yourself. Reveal and uncover the goodness that every single person in this room possesses. See it. See it clearly the way Jesus saw it in his fellow man. You know, when he called the woman, when the woman who was bowed over and no wise could lift up herself, remember that healing? He called her to him. How rude. Why would you make a bent over crippled woman come to you? Because he didn't see a bent over crippled woman. So change your view of the economy, change your view of the problems you're going to probably have in job seeking and networking, but change your view of yourself too. I'm going to leave you with two benedictions. First one is anonymous. Cheered by the presence of God, I will do each moment without anxiety through the strength which he shall give me, the work which his divine providence assigns me. And from 2 Corinthians, and God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound unto every good work. Thank you all very much.